we won't start. We'll just call this work session to, life. I don't even know what to say anymore.
To order.
Calling it to
Calling
order.
it to order. Thank you.
At 6 o'clock.
To
Yeah,
order, I
6
say, to
p.m.
order.
So, we absolutely have things we need to talk about tonight. Item number B on the work session is probably our most important one to discuss, obviously not agree on, but we'll vote on tonight during our action. So we definitely want to spend a lot of time on that one. But I do want to hit A and C because I think Sean has some really great updates for us and wanted to ask questions and things like that. So I might time check us if that's okay with you guys. So I make sure we have enough time to discuss the committee stuff and get some good overview and things like that. That work done?
Yes.
Okay. So Sean, will you please start us off with the work session for the HR reset discussion?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I was hoping to bring the salary adjustments to the board for approval tonight. I've been spending a lot of time reevaluating them and working with the transportation department, also working with individual contracts. Keep in mind, there's lots of anxiety and emotions that go along with this work. Anytime you monkey with contracts and salaries and benefits and those sorts of things. And at this point, the only changes that have been made have to do with compliance with the collective bargaining agreement. So I've been working with the teachers union on that and bringing everything back into compliance of what it should be. With the other adjustments, I'm still meeting with individuals, and I'll be meeting with more of them this next week to let them know that this is kind of what I've got planned. This is what I'll be recommending. And, and so I expect there'll be some more emotions this next week. This is not fun work, but it's necessary work. And again, it's all dependent upon the board approving or not the recommendations. We have not completed a cost analysis yet because I'm still working on where these people would be potentially placed.
And when you say placed, do you mean within step levels?
Yeah,
Or
within,
in
yeah.
roles?
So the board will be approving the salary schedules, and then it'll be up to me to place them in that salary schedule. And I've already encountered some people that have been misplaced the whole time. And so sometimes it requires me going back and reevaluating the personnel file to see, okay, how much experience do you have? Or can you justify the placement that you're on? I've had a few incomplete files, or we haven't had transcripts, or we haven't had, so those people are in the process of gathering those. So it's quite a heavy lift. So we're still working on all of that. Job descriptions are done. I'm starting to roll those out. And for people to see. And we're still working on the final steps of the staff handbook. Also, speaking of handbooks, Bart is working on athletic handbook and athletic evaluation process. Eric's still working on the student handbook. And that's about basically it where we're at with the HR reset.
Any questions? Make sure everybody had a chance to talk through it or ask questions or give Sean guidance that you guys might have.
Absolutely.
I actually went over all my questions in our meeting, so.
Okay, good. Yeah, if more questions pop up, don't be afraid to contact me, because every time I look at all this stuff, I see something different. Oh, I hadn't thought about that, or, oh, that's a good point, or, so the more eyeballs on this, the better.
Any comments?
I'm just concerned, are we just trying to cut for this year? Or are we actually looking into next year?
Are you talking about positions or salaries?
No, dollars.
Dollars.
Yes.
We are cutting right now 16%, because as you saw from the raise estimate.
We'll drop what, another 2 million plus next year, probably.
Lorraine is working with the state right now in terms of what it's going to look like.
Because that should be more like our actual numbers.
Yeah,
Because we're still on elevated numbers.
she will have some more accurate figures for us after she contacts the state. But yes, we're in that mode. We're in that mode of trimming.
Trimming for this year and
Next year.
next year.
To
and-
continue forward, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
unless we see huge resurgence of our ADM for Learn to Home. Yeah, so yes, we're in that mode,
Okay.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Ryan, do you have any HR, any questions about the HR reset? Or on the salary schedules or anything like that?
No, I'm good there.
Are there any objections if we jump to work session item C and discuss the independent financial audit discussion? Then we can reserve the rest of the time for the committee. Is there any objections to that from?
Nope.
Okay. Take it away, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some further developments on the ODE audit. I've been working with Colt Gill this week, and he is putting together a, what do you call it? A risk analysis team to come and do the work that they had notified us of a couple months ago. Keep in mind, the Secretary of State's office was going to do that, but they pulled out, and they claim it's for budget reasons. I have other suspicions. So once the risk analysis team comes on site and does their work, then they will probably be making a recommendation to an independent audit firm on our behalf. So they'll be referring it on.
Okay.
And I do not know when this team is going to arrive. I have not seen any dates scheduled yet. But the question has come up in terms of, should we be going out for our own independent financial audit? Certainly can, if that's what the board wants to do. I would be more of the mindset of waiting to see what comes out of ODE first. But we also know that, time is of the essence too. And it's been a very, very slow process thus far,
Mhm.
without any kind of answers. And I think a lot of some of those answers would also influence what we do moving forward with our budget. Once we find out, what happened, I think there's still a lot of questions that I don't think have been really answered of what happened prior to my arrival in terms of the budget and where things went. To do that kind of in-depth work is difficult, and we definitely want to get somebody with that. That's what they do. They conduct audits to do that kind of work. So I would say that's kind of where we're at in terms of, but if the board wants for me to go out and get some bids, I certainly could. Or the board can just choose to wait and let's see what happens with the ODE risk analysis. See what those results are. Because we should be able to tell after their team conducts a risk analysis, kind of where we're sitting.
When you said that ODE, they come down, they do a risk analysis and they put that together
Mhm.
and then they refer us out to an independent financial audit.
Yeah.
Whose budget does that come out of, that reference? Does that come out of ODE paying for that referenced financial audit, or does that come to ALC to pay for that?
It depends. I've seen it always in the past. There's times that ODE will completely front the bill. There's times I've seen ODE split the bill with the school district. And I've seen it also to where the district has had to put the whole bill. So I don't think that's really been answered at this point. The risk analysis team will be no cost to that, of course. But going out for an independent financial audit or a performance audit based upon malfeasance, potential malfeasance, that might be an expenditure that might be shared with the district. I don't know the answer to that at this point.
Any questions? I know you do.
Was it wrote all over my face?
Well, it just has to do with dollars.
Well, like I've said for quite some time, I realize we need to wait for ODE, but we've been kind of waiting for ODE for quite some time.
I know.
And I kind of feel that we should hire an outside auditor to really look at what's going on and what has been going on. It's my personal choice. I know there's a company down in Eugene that does that, particular schools and, government agencies. And I know it's kind of expensive, but I also know that it would answer a lot of questions that we've had over the last.
Sorry, do they give you a time frame on when they would have the risk analysis done?
No time frame yet.
And that's what I'm afraid of is, this is something that we've been asking for how long now?
Oh, long time.
Mhm.
I know ever since I got here even.
So I feel like my pigtails have been pulled enough and I'm ready to move forward and go to a pixie instead of pigtails.
Over here's.
So when you say moving forward, though, by doing this, we open all the doors to the past and we continue the rumblings of the past too. And we have moved forward a lot. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just also weigh like, do we want to pay for it? Do we have it in the budget to pay for it? Or do we put a lot of faith in Lorraine, take the time with the risk analysis and keep moving forward in the way that we're moving forward? And I don't know the answer to it. I just asked the question.
Remember, we're currently having the ESD do a payroll audit for last year.
I just don't, I'm
They're
sorry.
working on, oh,
I'm
you're fine,
sorry.
you're fine.
I just don't see the movement on ODE and that's,
It goes slowly, and I've had multiple conversations with Colt over this. He keeps telling me, Sean, it just moves slow. Hang in there, is what he tells me. So, yeah, I don't know how fast they're gonna react. I
So if
just
we
don't
go
know.
forward and do an independent audit, does that halt what they're going to come in and do?
I don't know. I don't know if they would just leave it to us then to do the financial audit.
he
or
says no.
No,
No,
No, if
You don't think
hire an
so?
Independent audit. No, I wouldn't imagine so.
okay,
You have to do an audit anyway. Sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
yeah,
no, that's okay.
yeah.
I saw the thought process. It was coming my way.
Keep in mind that the normal audits we do, they come in and they've decided to look at certain elements. So it's a sample.
Yeah.
It's not a
Mhm.
complete exhaustive
Mhm.
audit.
Right.
Well, what we would want to go for is a complete exhaustive audit.
So maybe a suggestion would be just to reach out to an audit firm and
Good.
have a conversation
We could.
and just ask them, give us a bid maybe.
We'd have to have
Well, it'd have
RFP
to
for
be
that.
an
RFP.
Yeah. has
We
to be an
could.
RFP for that.
So maybe we should try that.
We could.
So if I may, the way auditors select what they're going to examine is it's really random. They have a list of things. They have a very exhaustive list of elements of the organization that they can examine. And then they choose at random what they're going to look at. So as the auditor, as the individual, they're not biased by what they're looking at. Doing a forensic audit, you can say, well, we think some things happen here and here, and you can, and they can pull those threads and look into those specific areas if you have some sense of if something, if there was problems. in the past.
So that's
So-
what I was recommended to do, a forensic audit, not a
Mhm.
basic.
No.
That's what I was
And I
recommending.
didn't know any of that until I talked to my finance director at OSBA.
Mhm.
He used to be a finance director for a school district.
Mhm.
So just my opinion, I think we should, put an RFP together and at least just get numbers, because that doesn't cost us anything, does it?
We go out for an RFP and see what we get. A forensic audit.
So that's just my suggestion.
If we did an RFP, I'm assuming the 21-22 school year, 2021, and the year prior. I don't know how far back we would want to
19,
go.
18, 20, 21, 21, 22.
Sure depends on how much money you want to spend.
Yeah, I mean, because you're talking,
Cuckoo hours.
and it's gonna be a lot of gathering records.
Mhm. But if we feel that there's problems, then our due diligence tells me we should do it. That's
So let me ask you this. What do we want to see in terms of an outcome, and where would this take us?
accountability.
But what's it really gonna do?
Well,
Who's it-
it could, it depends on what they find, but
I know, but we're
Are we
learning
gonna
that.
get back what we lost?
Hmm.
I mean. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's, I mean, what does it give us at the end of the day?
accountability.
For people at this table,
Do,
or are we holding people that aren't here accountable?
Both. Mostly people that are not here at this table anymore.
I didn't mean this table, sorry, this district,
Yes.
sorry. I'd like to see what ODE comes back with before, with the risk analysis, I think is my thought process, like why spend the brain capital on it from our side when we have so many wheels going and so many things going in positive? And I'd like ODE to come back with what their risk analysis looks like. I think that gives us guidance on where we want to go. But we can put, what I was gonna say was, do we want to put an action item on the agenda?
Well, I think Sean's wheels are already turning on this. So I don't think it's gonna be anything more turning. I think he's already turning these pages and looking at this. And so I feel it's worth at least getting an RFP done and seeing what it would cost us.
I'm emailing Colt right now and asking for a time frame.
Do you have a thought on any of this?
I don't think I have anything, I can't surface anything that the board has already surfaced. I don't have anything more to add. This is what I would say.
So I think let's just make it a thought process and
Well, if you want to the agenda when we get into open session, or sorry, when we get into our regular session, we find out there for us to vote on too. That's something that you want.
Can you repeat that?
I just said if it's something that we feel strongly on, that we want to vote on it as an action, when we get into regular session, we can addend our
Mhm.
agenda and
Yeah.
vote on that if we want to.
Mhm.
Any other discussion on?
No.
Good, that gives us 43 minutes to talk about the superintendent search and all of our questions.
Yay,
yay.
Mr. Adams, would you like to join us?
I would love to join you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Really quick, before you get started, can you give the board an overview of where we're at in the process?
Well, yes, I have talked to Vince and he has collected some information. And I hope you guys all got the proposed qualities and qualification email and read that. So I did, and I found it really quite interesting what our community kind of thought. They're looking for community members at 24%. I was a little taken back. We only got 25 responses. Is that what that means?
No, you got over
103. It says in total,
Where you got.
I'm
Oh, no,
looking at
that's the
your-
calendar.
your proposed qualities and qualifications.
Yeah, you got a total of 103 responses. Yeah, 25 community members, 24 parents. And so these are people they identified themselves.
Okay,
So this is how they identified themselves. 25 community members, 24 parents, 24 certified staff, 21 classified staff, 4 administrators.
oh, I see what that meant. So,
Yeah,
okay,
that's the count
okay,
is in that far column there. And so you had a total of 103 responses, which for a community the size of Alsea, I would say that's pretty darn good.
yeah.
I was actually impressed by the results.
That's about half of the normal vote on legal vote, about half.
There you go.
Our legal registered voters is
Yeah,
679.
but the ones that usually vote is about 200.
Mhm.
You know, and some of these people aren't going to be residing in the community, but they're people who have a stake in your community. Regardless, I mean, 103 respondents to the survey is a pretty good cross section of your school community. So I have had a high degree of confidence. And I would say that there was, and when I was going through the results, there's a pretty strong signal. There was, there were these items that I pulled in, these qualities that I propose. We're on a different agenda item. You're supposed to talk about this later on, I think, but we're
Yeah,
supposed to be talking
We're
about
talking
screening
we're
committee,
talking
aren't
about the
we?
Committee right now.
Yeah.
So you asked, where are we at? And so
And
this,
Yeah,
so we're still really at the beginning of the process. And so this was our first step of collecting information from the community to provide information for the board so you can identify what your qualities and qualifications are.
Right.
Okay. And that's an important component of the marketing of this position, because that is one of the pieces that potential applicants will be looking at. What is this community? What is this board looking for? And are my qualities and qualifications, do they line up with what this community is looking for? So that's one piece. We have to take a little bit of time because we want to make this inclusive of the community. And so, but I'll be looking for an approval tonight of this. We will also want to, get started with identifying screening committee members, because we need to schedule a training. And so that's another element that I have to get tonight, is I need to nail down the date for that screening committee training tonight. We don't necessarily have to identify all the screening committee members, but in the next couple weeks, we need to get that nailed down, because we need to let them know when that training is going to happen, and they can, arrange their schedule so that they can attend that meeting, because we need all of them. And I won't be able to release applications to them until they have gone through that training and signed a confidentiality agreement.
So at this point, I guess, should we be asking people if they would be interested? And that was my question the other day. Should we be having the conversations with the people? Even individually, if you were asked to serve on this, would you be interested, kind of thing, putting
Mhm.
bugs in their ears?
Yeah, you could have been already doing that. And certainly you're going to want to do that in earnest over the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because you'll want to nail that
That's
date
kind of what
down.
I thought.
I
And
thought we
then,
we're voting tonight on the committee members.
Well, you have to ask them if they want to first.
you don't have to vote on the committee.
I thought that's what you asked us to do last board meeting. That's why I went out and had those conversations.
You
Okay.
had those conversations?
We
Awesome.
talked about it. Ethan and I texted about it.
I didn't think you were going out. Okay, I guess I was confused by that.
I do need to vote on the qualities and qualifications. I don't need a vote on the screening committee.
Okay.
The qualities and qualifications, I do need a vote on that. That's required in statute. So the screening committee, I mean, if you identified, 5 tonight and then another 7, next week, and I got their names and contact information, we'd be fine.
Okay.
Because what we'll do with them is then that I will give them to my admin staff, my search staff, and they will one, start corresponding with them, letting them know that this training is going to happen. And then the other piece is that we have an online tool where we put all the application materials so everybody can access them. You won't get hard copies. You'll be doing this all online, and we will load them into, it's called Revelis, but we'll load them into that tool and get them so they have accounts that they can access that. So that's the screening committee piece. So really, I mean, this is the time when you really should identify that list. And I mean, I'm happy to collect that information for you. Or you can write, someone can write the names down, and then as long as I get a list of names with emails and phone numbers, that would be great. Well, phone numbers would be optimal, but it doesn't have to. But I really need emails.
So do we want to talk about the community members that we?
Well, yeah, that's what I thought we were doing tonight, was discussing, who we thought, and then asking them if they were wanting.
You and I had chatted about it, so I thought that.
We
'cause you had asked
did.
who I had talked to.
Oh, I thought those were just names you were thinking about. You didn't tell me who you were thinking. I gave you a few names who I was thinking. Then I thought we were gonna talk about it tonight and then go to the people. So I guess I was confused by the
You
conversation.
can certainly take that approach. That's fine. Usually at this stage, you're just identifying who to reach out to.
Yeah,
So if you already have people committed to be on your screening committee, you're ahead of the game. And that's a good thing.
I think we have people willing to be on here, but
Yeah.
we haven't voted on anything, so.
Yeah. Okay.
And do we have, I guess that's my question is, we don't have, so then you're saying we don't have to vote. We can just give you all the names that we as a group feel like would be a good one, and then you would compile that group and have that communication with them, right, Vincent?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm making a spreadsheet right now. You can start blurting names and then get me email addresses later.
Why are they bugging me?
You wanna start?
go ahead.
Okay, so Chris Cantrell,
Of course, I may get these.
that's all right. Nicole, can you make sure he gets our notes?
If you got notes, awesome. And
And George Foster, we're something, well, and Jamie Olson from the community. And then from the school, Cheryl Doe and Heather Shunk.
Okay. Probably spelled
Catherine
that.
Ellis.
Yes, I'm fine with that. I mean,
Well, that's the only person that I was really thinking. 'cause,
oh, from like the teacher standpoint.
mhm,
And the
So
union.
Catherine Ellis and David Frick. And maybe Skip Lynch.
What we call them. This is, let's keep it friendly.
Do you have a name?
I
other
don't
than
need-
Skip?
David?
Actually, can I have both? Because on the confidentiality agreement, we should probably have his legal name. Okay, good. And so when we're thinking about, are you noting their role as well? That would be great. Because when we're composing the screening committee, we usually want about 2/3 staff to 1/3
Right.
community is what we're looking for.
So are we having any of the admin like Tim France?
Tim's resigning. Do we want him on the panel?
Oh, he's kind of one of our principals.
But for selection for next year?
I
That's
was-
just my question. I mean,
Yeah, because I like I would like his input. And what about Eric Clendenin? Has anybody talked to him?
I haven't talked to them at all.
I haven't
But-
either.
We can
It
put him
doesn't
down.
seem to matter at this point. It's just
Yeah.
things that we would like to see.
Mhm.
So Tim France as an admin.
Okay. She's collecting the names for me, so I'm gonna
fabulous.
stop.
She's good. That's why she's there.
How about, oh.
Yes.
What are we up to? How many people? Okay.
Sarah
Those-
Cash as our also, and she's our public information
How many
officer.
are we
12.
throwing out there? And
You know, outside of 12, 15 at the, if you gotta have 15, but keep in mind is that the bigger the screening committee, the longer the meetings go, because we have to get that information out of them. And so it just takes longer to debrief that committee.
Well, I was thinking a few more names that way in case somebody says no.
That's a good idea.
So
well, I talked to Soren Rounds and he was interested, but he wasn't able to come tonight at all, but he would be interested.
That's okay. They don't have to be here tonight.
anybody from the grade school side? Possibly.
Would Mary be willing to do it? Since she sees from grade school, I guess it, Mary O'Brien, because she sees from,
Mary O'Brien is right behind you. She can answer.
Would you be interested in being on the screening committee for the new super?
Sure.
Mary O'Brien.
You have
Thank you,
one.
Mary.
So
Exactly.
you get for hanging out with us on Thursday nights. All right, you have 1, 2, 3 committee members, 4 committee members. Do you want to have them in teachers' board?
Mhm.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So that gets you to 12. Do you have any classified staff on that list?
No,
Some-
there isn't, is there?
So are there any classified staff that you'd like to have on that list?
I don't know who's on that list.
Yes, please.
No, I don't know who's on the classified list.
Oh,
What
no,
about-
I meant,
Anna DeBoard.
Oh.
Right.
Oh,
she's
there you go.
classified.
Should be classified.
Anna DeBoard, that'd
And
be a good.
Keenan. That's a-
Keenan be
That's
classified.
a good one.
There you go. I know Keenan. He's sharp.
Not to put you on the spot, but Nicole sees a lot of things inside this school and has a lot of different hats that she wears. So Nicole, if you'd be willing, you'd be a good person too.
That takes us to what, 15? That's
a
probably a
good
good
number.
list.
And that's good if people opt out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we get low, then we can go out and identify a few more people. Because we'll have to nail down a single date for our screening committee training. If there's one or two that it doesn't work out for, I can do it one-on-one, but I try not to do that.
Okay.
But.
How
Okay.
long is the training usually?
Hour.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Oh, no, yeah, it's not onerous. No, it's a 5-hour training. You have to do running, do laps. Oh, it's terrible. No, it's.
so I do have one question. In that list that we identified, were we heavy on admin and upper rather than teachers? Skip Lynch.
Only have 2 ed.
No, we have
For admin, you have Cheryl Doe.
Oh, yeah.
Jen Grant, Eric Lynn. And then for teachers, you have Catherine Ellis, David Britt, Rod Skip Lynch.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
good mix. And then we added classified and the community.
Yep.
And all of those are kind of community also.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
Okay,
think that's a good mixture.
okay.
Okay, what's our next step after this? We do the training.
Oh, you want the actual steps you want to walk through the calendar? Yeah,
Well,
sure.
I'm just trying to keep like 1 or 2 steps ahead in my brain so we know where we're looking at next.
So currently I put the screening committee training on January 5th. Because we have to hold the position open. So between now and then, we'll be posting the position and then distributing it, across the country. So then position closes on December 29th. And then in the new year, we're going to go ahead and do that screening committee training. Is January 5th going to work for? Is that a good date? Because the board needs to be there.
I will not be here.
Okay.
That
I
was-
am in Hawaii until January 9th. So I could possibly dial in.
That is, you can.
Who
Okay.
gave you time off?
It hasn't passed by my office yet.
Huh.
We'll have to see.
You get back January 9th.
Correct.
So just to throw this out there, we have a regularly scheduled board meeting on January 12th. Do we just have a work session at 6 and possibly even push our board meeting back to 7:30? And then we're kind of consolidated in one night. I don't know, what does the group think about that? We'll have to vote on it in open session in just a minute, but
That works for me.
Yeah, that works for me.
January, we have basketball games on Thursday. And we won't have it
we'll figure it out.
think we can
Well, we're
figure-
not changing board meetings though, so. I mean,
Well, but
But if you're doing a training.
if she's doing
also
this,
training too. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
well,
So,
we can vote on, what if we did something like that? We put it on as an action item tonight to vote on with the group. Vincent then gets the names to start collaborating and gives you feedback Deb, on like dates, movements, and then we can work on that as a board. What does
Yeah.
that look like?
That sounds good to me.
so we're looking at the 12th.
Just so we can maybe get a vote on the table to start having those discussions.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'll be back by then and I'll be able to maybe catch up with you. Maybe the 10th or so when I get back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's gonna go till. We'll try to do it in an hour. Okay, awesome. Perfect. And I would love to have you vote on your Q and Qs, but
Qualities and qualifications.
we can, I guess what we can do,
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda to vote on tonight.
right. But we have to wait until that part of the agenda. So, um,
So as they're voting on it tonight, the question would be is, do they want to add to that list? Correct.
yes, that is the question. Are there any edits
Mhm.
to that? And so the board has had some opportunity. I'm having, if you want to, because you've identified your screening committee, thank you. You've identified your screening committee training date. Now I gotta go back and look at my notes. Make sure I hit all my check boxes here. These documents in front of me, stand by. I'm on October 27th. Got that. Got that. Oh, we need to talk about salary range, but we need to do that on that agenda item.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This list of proposed qualities and qualifications,
Mhm.
maybe I'm obtuse to this, but these look like qualities to me, not qualifications.
Okay.
I think of qualifications as, degree, years of experience and things like that. Is that just because they weren't prioritized
Well, it's
by
on
the
there.
survey?
Strong academic credentials. It's just kind of intertwined with
Okay.
Intertwined.
the qualities.
Mhm.
Never mind.
So
Background in teaching,
I
and building
mean-
administration. Okay,
the
Yeah,
hard
it's just kind of
quali-
intertwined with.
yeah, I get it.
the hard qualification is that they have to be licensed as a superintendent in the state of Oregon.
Even as a charter.
Yes.
I'm
I
just
think
joking.
that's our,
Yeah.
I think that way we put a policy in place for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the hard one. I mean, you could stipulate a doctorate if you wanted, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Not with the current market.
Actually, searches are going pretty good. We're getting applicants. So
Good.
even out of season. So
Good.
it's not bad.
And if you think of the time frame like that we're at, are we ahead of the curve, behind, like, how are you gut feeling about that?
You are well ahead of the curve right now.
I'm gonna sound like Robert. I feel like we're behind. I feel like we're behind. I'm like,
So-
"Oh."
No. So to put this in
Keep saying that to
perspective,
Me too.
there are some consultants that say you shouldn't go out for a superintendent before the new year. You're closing before the new year. So if we don't have a strong applicant pool, we can extend that window.
Okay. If you say so, I'm good with that.
Mhm.
No, you're well ahead of the game.
So in regular session tonight, we'll discuss the qualities and qualifications, the salary range. I think there was one other.
That's it. That's all I have on my list left.
So can we not discuss the salary range right now? We're just voting on that, right?
I would want to do that. Yeah, you need to approve a salary range. So I'm gonna
And do
need
you
that.
have that for us? You're gonna.
I have
propose
it, but I'm gonna
later.
put it on the screen.
Okay,
So you just want to do all that during break?
Yeah, it's because of the what you put on your agenda.
Oh,
Because, yeah, you're in a different part of the agenda right now. And so the public is expecting
so here.
to hear that at that point.
okay.
So I want to honor that.
So. With that, do we have anything else we want to, I don't think we have anything else in our work session to discuss.
No.
We will adjourn our work session at 18:41 and we're ready to go into regular session at 1900.
Yes, please. That would be amazing. Here. This is why I like administrative professionals.
Committee member training date of January 12th.
Okay,
I. Superintendent salary schedule.
okay. Okay. Got it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other adjustments to the agenda that we need to make this evening?
Not for me.
All right, hearing no other adjustments, we will approve the agenda. Wait for me to scroll to the top. And we will move into district recognition, Mr. Gallagher.
I think you need to vote on the agenda change. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I will make a motion to approve the agenda with the additions.
Okay. There's a second. All right. Roll call vote. Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christina's yes, Linda, yes, Ryan, all in favor unanimously. All right, school district recognition.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. I see Mr. Tim France is with us online. So Tim, if you could unmute, because I do believe you have a presentation you'd like to make tonight on a teacher. Are you there, Tim?
There we go. Yep, just got it switched over. All
Okay.
right. Well, coming to you with the highlight of my power went out just about 20 minutes ago. So I scrambled and we're getting generators turned on. So anyways, glad to be back on here. We'd like to recognize one of our instructional assistants. And that is, if she wants to go up front and then join you, is Miss Chelsea White. And Miss Chelsea White's been with us. So congratulations, Chelsea. Chelsea has done an outstanding job. She has jumped up to be one of our leaders of our instructional assistants in Learn at Home. And her continuing her plan, her professional growth plan, she's looking to be a teacher. And today she was actually getting to be a substitute teacher. So we really appreciate Chelsea and all the work that she's done. She's been an outstanding employee. So thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Nice job, Chelsea.
Great job.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. France. And glad that your power is getting back turned on.
Generators.
Oh, generators. There we go.
Great.
Yeah.
And Mr. France, did you have anything for students tonight?
Our students was going to be our student of the month. And unfortunately, my hard computer is now down. I'm using my laptop. So I do not have my my desktop computer up and running. So I'm on my laptop and I don't have our PowerPoint where we recognize all of our student of the months. I was going to show you guys our student of the month assembly slide deck. So I will probably see about sending that to you guys separately.
Okay,
Outstanding. Thank you.
thanks, Mr.
Thank
France.
you.
Yep.
All right, let's move to superintendent report. Mr. Gallagher.
Yes, lots of things on the docket tonight. We have a special guest with us today, Mr. David Crow. Dave, go ahead and come on up. I'll put the CTE PowerPoint up here and you can kind of walk us through it. I've asked Dave to present on this. He went to a regional CTE coordinator meeting and the regional coordinators wanted to put this PowerPoint together. But there is some very, very, very valuable information in this PowerPoint about our region and careers that are associated with career technical education. And I think we really need to pay attention to this, especially as we're looking at building a vocational center. There's a lot of data that we'll track with that. And I think you'll see a lot of relevancy. So Dave, I'm gonna be quiet here and just kind of let you talk us through this. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. You laid the foundation very well. Hello, everybody. So I had the privilege of attending what's called the CTE principals meeting. It's a gathering of administrators, CTE coordinators, that type of positions at LBCC. And these meetings are put on roughly about once a month. Sometimes they go once a quarter. And this presentation was shared at that meeting by a gentleman named Dale Moon. Dale Moon is a dean at LBCC, and he's also the regional. Each area in the CTE realm has what's called a hub. And for Lynn and Benton County, LBCC is the hub for all CTE programs in this area. And Dale is the coordinator. He's the regional CTE hub coordinator for all schools in the Lynn and Benton County, all public schools in the Lynn and Benton County area. So this first part of the first few of the slides, he's speaking about Perkins. So it doesn't necessarily, that was just general updates about schools that qualify for Perkins funds and when the funds were released and that type of thing. So that doesn't necessarily apply to us at this point, but we can go ahead and skip. Mostly what he wanted to share was there was some very eye-opening economic data, job market data that was shared, and it starts right here. It's the labor market information for Lynn and Benton County. And each community college, each hub that is focused on their specific areas have access to, he gave me the name of it, but it's a very high horsepower job market analysis powered by the state of Oregon. So this isn't job market stuff that's from 2 years ago that they have had time to break down. This is actual current job market data. So in this very specific information, they break down CTE, which is career and technical education, in 6 career clusters. And those are the career clusters right there, how it's broken down. So say if a school wanted to start a CTE program of study, you would align with one of these 6 career clusters. So all the data that's presented for job markets is aligned with one of these. So these aren't just out of the blue jobs. These are very specific career and technical education aligned job openings. Okay, so go ahead to the next one. And so say welding and fabrication would fall underneath 1 or 2 of those pathways in that cluster. So any of those, automotive, construction, architecture, that type of thing. Okay, go to the next one. So this slide talks about the CTE programs in the region. Now, these are actual approved programs of study through ODE, through our local public schools. So as you can see over on the left, there's architecture and food, natural resources. There's 9 programs of study throughout the different high schools. 12 for information and communications, 12 for business management, 5 for health services, 3 in human resources, and then 16 in industrial and engineering systems. Go ahead to the next one. This breaks it down by schools. And so as you can see pretty quickly, Lebanon High School, good for them. They are knocking it out of the park. This is the CTE programs in the region. So those are official programs of study that have been filed with the state of Oregon and approved. And then they have all of the classes for those programs of study that if a student starts those, they will follow through and finish those programs of study. So you can see Corvallis, both Corvallis, the Spartans and Crescent Valley, they're doing pretty good. They have 6, South Albany has 6, West Albany has 8, and then Lebanon, like we said, is 9. They're definitely the leader. As you can see, LC is not up there, but we're hoping to change that. We'd like one of our very rural, similar type schools, Kings Valley Charter School, they're even on the board. So we'd like to change that. So this is a pretty interesting slide. This is within the last 12 months. Like we said, this is very real, very recent data. This isn't like a breakdown from a couple years ago. And within those 6 CTE clusters, that was almost 21,000 job postings within the last year. So that's a lot of open jobs that local employers, this is just Lynn and Benton County. This isn't the state of Oregon. That's just 2 counties with 21,000 open jobs. Within those 2 counties, they have an unemployment rate of 3.6%. The projected growth in those 6 career clusters is 20% over the next 10 years. So if we have 20,000 unfilled jobs right now, over the next 10 years, they're projecting that to go up by another 20%. And that local quotient, that's kind of an interesting comparison. It is how livable is an area. So they're saying our area, Lynn and Benton County is average in its livable location quotient. So the big thing on that side was lots of open jobs. Now, if you compare with the open jobs, this breaks it down a little bit further over the clusters. You can see by far the big demand is healthcare. Human resources comes in 3rd, and then industrial and engineering is the 2nd highest demand for the number of jobs.
I have to say, part of that surprises me.
Yeah.
Not in the healthcare, but the others surprise me. The numbers aren't higher.
Yep. And as we progress through these slides, it'll compare with how many, I believe the next one compares with how, yep, right here. So as you can see, this is how many programs of study are in our region. So R2, Lynn and Benton County, and our CTE hub. There's only 4 programs of study in healthcare or healthcare focused. And you can see the demand broken down. So high demand and not very many programs of study. Ironically, there's 16 industrial and engineering geared programs of study, but there's still a very high demand. So there's a lot of programs of study, but we're still not meeting the demand, which means we can keep cranking those students out to help feed our local job market. So
Can I interrupt and ask a question
Mhm.
really quick?
Yeah.
Do they, or maybe you'll get to this and definitely tell me if we do, but do they ever find like an equilibrium, like where they anticipate we might meet an equilibrium of programs that we're offering and satisfying the job market?
well, as you can see, so there's 9, like over there in the agriculture and food and natural resources, there's 9 programs of study that might have crossovers in their class matrices that would meet those career clusters. And there's not a lot of demand there, but that doesn't bring in, and Dale talked about this, that doesn't bring in like in agriculture and food and natural resources, that would be a culinary class. That would fall within that class matrix. But that doesn't bring in the crossover, say, for entrepreneurship. So if you wanted to start a food truck, that's culinary, but it's also a business management crossover. So it's kind of hard looking at these bar graphs of really finding out, are we in that sweet spot, or is there still a demand there? Because there is a demand for food trucks and that type of thing, which is a crossover between business, which, as you can see there on the third bar, there's 12 programs of study and there's decent demand. But then that also crosses over to the lower demand on the far left-hand side. So it's kind of hard to find where that sweet spot is.
I just didn't know if they talked about any of that, like when you look at like healthcare and human resources and. That's-
Yeah.
Thank you though.
Yeah, absolutely. That just kind of, yep, shows the numbers of. So this is a further breakdown of employment in the region. And there's a bar, I don't know if you can see the bar down, the gray part down underneath on the actual presentation, Sean. Maybe it may not show it. No, yeah, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. So it just further breaks down what some of the high needs were. Ironically, if you look about midway down that list, it says arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media. Dale wrote that there's 160 of those were either coaches or like trainers in that. So there was a lot of openings for coaches and trainers in that breakdown because it crosses that line with sports. So this, I think, was the most impactful. And there was about 30 of us in the room when he presented this. And this was a very impactful slide for a lot of people that went to a lot of school and spent a lot of money to get different types of degrees. And now I'm not going to say one thing or the other. If a person is on a path to get an admin or a master's degree or bachelor's or whatever that may be, we'll always support those people to go after those paths. But this was also a very eye-opening, and this is current market data. This isn't projected or this isn't years ago. This is right now. So what this slide is showing is if you leave high school or get a small amount of vocational training, you're going to walk out of there and be able to get a job in our area, averaging low 27 and high 37, but averaging about $31,000 a year. Now in our area, you go to school and you get a 2-year degree or a certificate, you're going to walk out in on average a $64,000 job, low of 43 and a high of 78. But in our area with a 2-year degree, you're walking out or certificate with almost $65,000. And you look right below that, that's a bachelor's degree. And on average, you're looking at just shy of $61,000. And then the bottom bar there with a master's degree, right about $65,000 again. So just a little bit under our current market of the associate's degree. So that kind of goes against a little bit of what historically we've been told about: go to school, go to school, go to school. And now again, I would never, if a student is on a 4-year track, go seek what you want. But then also the career and technical education path is very viable, where students are coming out of a small school with an associate's or a certificate, a tech certificate, and going to work and making average $65,000 a year. So that slide in particular, when I came back, I showed this presentation to Sean and Eric, and that was a pretty impactful slide.
Yes, it was.
Of what we're trying to do and the clientele, our customers that we're trying to serve, our community that we're trying to serve, the CTE path and the CTE realm is very valuable to our local economy. So. And then this last slide, ironically, so of those 21,000 jobs that were open, they surveyed a vast majority of those employers. And these commonly have been referred to in the past as soft skills. They are shying away from that terminology now, but these are the skills that those employers are saying we want most, we need our hires to be able to meet these skill sets. And if you look up there, not a lot of them, there are some that talk about, specific knowledges, but most of them are what we would call soft skills, communication skills, physical abilities, organizational skills, problem solving, detail oriented. These are the things that career and technical education programs that are aligned with official programs of study with the Oregon Department of Education. These are the boxes that you have to check to be considered a program of high value. And to qualify for Perkins funds, you have to be a high value program of study. And these are the type of boxes that you check. So when you start talking about the value of education and which route you want to go, the CTE realm is pretty impactful. So I think that's probably about it. Yep. So he just talks about more resources if you want to dig in a little deeper. But like I said, I came back from that meeting and shared that presentation with Sean and Eric, and he wanted to bring it to you all just to kind of have a conversation about the CTE realm. So if you ever have any questions, this is where I'm passionate about it. So if you ever want to reach out to me, I'm an open book.
So one of the things I want to make sure that everybody knows, we're, embarking on vocational center. We're trying to look at some programs of study, particularly with forestry right now.
Yes, sir.
We're looking at those sorts of things, putting the building blocks together for that.
Mhm.
And of course, we have other areas we want to expand into also, but we kind of have to do it one step at a time.
Mhm.
And as we get into a program of study approved, then it makes more, or it allows us to access more Perkins funds to
Absolutely.
support that program.
Yep, absolutely.
So keep in mind, as we do this, it's not like it's all going to be on the back of the school district.
Mhm.
There are resources out there to help us.
And different pools.
And
So
different
Perkins
pools.
is federal funds, but there's pathway funds as well. And those are, it's different pools. So you're not just going to exhaust one or the other. And so, and the more students that you have progressing through a program of study will also increase the amount of funds that you can gather from the high school success, which was measured 98 a couple years ago, and that type of thing. So once you start doing the actual work to lay a true program of study, they're not fully self-sufficient, but they can get very near being self-sufficient. So anyhow.
Are there outlines or examples of programs of study that you
Absolutely.
can mimic your build off of?
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
And
Right.
if we fully decided, yes, as an organization, we want to write a forestry program of study, I could have that done in a half a day. And so 2 Fridays ago, I was at what's called FNRL, Future Natural Resources Conference. And the head CTE person for the Oregon Department of Education, Reynold Gardner, I actually go by Dr. Reynold Gardner, but Reynold Gardner was there, and I stood up. They made everybody stand up and who you are and where you taught and what you've done and all that type of stuff. And I said I was from ALC, and I was like the third to last person to go. And so I sat back down, and then the other couple of people were going next to me, and all of a sudden I felt this person slide next to me, put his hand on my shoulder, and he says, "You and I need to talk." So we have the supports of Reynold. He would like to see that for us here in LC. And there would be plenty of support from the ODEs and from Dale Moon there at LVCC, who would be our partner. It's not difficult to start the program of study, the facilitation of it, and make sure everything is aligned, and building a truly rewarding program of study. That's where the nitty gritty comes from. But the actual filing of a program of study and building the class matrix is not difficult at all. So.
I look at your baseline skills, not your soft skills, but I would look at that in conjunction with a forestry program, and not to mimic what other schools have done, but bringing in FFA
Mhm.
and things like that and building, those future leaders.
Yep.
In programs like that. And
So what that's called is called a CTSO. It's a career student organization, career and technical student organization. And you referenced FFA, FBLA, FNRL that I talked about, Future Natural Resources. They're the fastest growing CTSO in the state of Oregon. The only one that rivals them in student participation now in the state of Oregon is FFA. And so when we can no longer call them forestry competitions, are called career development events. They're CDEs. But when you take students to CDEs, they have things like prepared speech. They have things like first aid and incident command. They have obviously the pole climbing and the saws and the axe throwing and all that kind of stuff. But it's not just that anymore. They are gearing these CDEs towards student development to address those soft skills. And so those CTSOs, like the FFA, there's been lots of big pushes by a lot of different partners, both for the conservative side or the conservation side and the industry side, to realize we're not filling the demand of these jobs. I mean, that was 21,000 jobs in Lynn and Benton County. So if we're not filling those jobs, what can we do to really get our students prepared to fill those jobs? And they're high wage, high demand. These aren't just minimum wage jobs. So anyhow, that was my presentation. And he's like, well, you come give this to the board. So
Yes,
there I give
yes.
to the
No, I
board.
appreciate it, Dave. And
I have
Thank
some
you.
notes for
Yeah.
our Tuesday meeting for things that we could talk about on what we might want to do to get things
sure,
going.
you bet. I'm all ears. No, to me, this is exciting as we start building these. And I want LC to be on the board up there, just like all the other school districts.
Leading.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So pretty
All right.
excited about it. This is a neat future. We're starting now, but I think as we develop in the future, I'd love to see where we are in 5 or even 10 years from now. It'd
I
be really
agree.
cool.
All right. Thank you
Dave.
all.
Thank
Yeah,
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much. Thanks for your hard work.
Nice job. Nice job. Okay, let me quickly talk about the state assessments. The board had asked to see. Oh, thank you. Testing. The board had asked to see some more comparative schools on the state assessments, if this will launch for me. I'm not going to go over the data that we've already gone over. I'm just going to highlight, we chose 3 more schools. One of them was that's Alcy. One of them was Butte Falls. Butte Falls was very similar to us in terms of the participation rates. It's hard to decipher anything from Butte Falls. And we also brought in Mapleton. Mapleton was even worse than what we were in terms of participation rates. And then I brought in a Prairie City because Prairie City pretty much had 100% participation across the board. And when you have 100% participation, now your testing data is valid. Remember, we need to get to that 80%, so we have some valid test data. And so that's a good example of a small school, very similar in ADM to what we are, brick and mortar, that was able to test 100% of the kids. And if you notice their test scores in ELA, they're still down. I mean, but we can say definitively, yeah, I mean, that's some valid data. And look at their math scores, they're down. And science scores are down also. And that's pretty much apropos with what we're seeing reported to us across the state. There's been a lot of state evaluations. The COVID time period for education was not friendly for our kids and for test data. And so there's going to have to be a lot of discussions with that, which kind of leads to the next part of my superintendent's report. And that's a legislative report. I just want to prepare the board for what's coming at us very quickly. Let's see. I gotta remember how to do this. I'm gonna do slideshow. Oh, that little guy. Thank you. There we go. So we're about ready to enter a legislative session, and we're already into a gubernatorial race. And you're going to see some stats here that talk about it's a record political leadership change. We're going to get a lot of change in our state leadership. We're going to talk about state school fund really quick, also public instructional needs, as well as some key dates. So let's talk about political leadership. There is record legislative leadership changes. Again, we're going to have a new governor. They are spending the most they've ever spent on a gubernatorial race, about 60 million between the three of them. And also in the House, all 60 seats are open. In the Senate, 16 of 30 seats are open. And we have to keep this in mind because the question is, when was the last time our political leaders stepped foot into a public school? Do they know what's currently happening K through 12 in our school zones? Most of them don't have school age kids. That's statistically true. So, I think that really helps us to determine, okay, how are we going to loop in our legislatures? How are we going to embrace them and talk to them? Because they need to understand the school memories they have when they went through as a child or as a young parent is different now from when it was back then. The issues that we're dealing with now are so much different. State school fund. Currently, the state school fund is at 9.3 billion. That's for the entire state. What they're talking about proposing right now, the legislative discussions are 9.52 billion. So if I just did some real rough math, rough, but it potentially puts our district, the share of that increase as about 188,000 or equivalent to $342 for one of our students. Is that enough for us? Don't have the predicted cost increases yet. That'll come in the budget process. Every year there's budget increases, whether it's for benefits or salaries, or look at the price of fuel, increased costs there, price of food, there's increased costs. And so the state estimates that we need what is currently in the state school fund plus an extra 750 million to $1 billion just to match normal increased costs. So we have some politicizing that we need to be doing. We need to be getting the message out. I think the most that they've been able to push that needle in the past is only about 300 million. Wait a second. We just said we need between 750 million to $1 billion. We got some politicking to do. And I think we really need to be thinking about that because we know the needs of our students. Right now, social emotional support is huge. I was in a superintendent meeting yesterday and they're reporting record numbers of students with anxiety attacks, with students that have social emotional behavior issues, with students that cannot sit still, with students that are suicidal. Record numbers. They've never seen such heavy numbers before. And so we need to be reaching out to a lot of additional resources. Also, we have to address the COVID learning gap. Like I said earlier, COVID was not friendly to our education system with our kids. It just wasn't. It's something we had to go through, got it. But now what are we gonna do now to try and recoup that and move forward? It's going to take some resources. Also, a lot of students are still transitioning back to in-person instruction. They got used to the online world and now they're coming back and they have to behave and have to be quiet and they can't. Well, we know what we talked about here. Also, staffing needs. You just saw the stats that Dave just presented. Go get your associates and certificated and you're going to earn the equivalent of somebody with a master's degree. I get worried about recruiting teachers. Oregon State University is only supposed to produce 30 teachers this year. OSU, I remember the days when OSU and they had announced the teachers, half the stadium would get up. Not
30.
anymore. 30. Oregon State University, 30. So we have some very serious recruitment and education staffing needs. And part of the ticket to get them in the door is maintaining competitive wages. Also, PERS and benefit increases continue to rise. Counselors and specialists, mentor support. We have a lot of teachers that are coming out of online schools and they haven't had the practicum experience in the classroom. So they're coming in very, very green. They need extra support. Currently, right now, Tim Pearson is on it. We're using a grant to do just that. And Tim Pearson is our teacher mentor, and he's helping out a lot of these teachers in terms of making that transition and giving the support they need. And we know we have a labor shortage, serious labor shortage. Also, in terms of public education needs, let's just talk about safety. Most schools are designed like we have here at Alsea, and they're designed to be open to the public. You know, and so we think about safety. Well, we're going to need some extra resources to maintain safety. We just installed a new intercom system. We're installing new electronic locks that are attached to the intercom system. So it could be a one button push and we lock the whole school down, you know, but that takes resources to do, and that takes expenses. Also, student and staff training in regards to safety. Facilities. You know, I just laugh. I got to say, I just laugh when the state really pushes equity. And then I start driving from community to community and I see the different facilities in every community. And I think, really, is there equity here? When communities like Alsea lost timber dollars, it never was replaced. We're dealing with a train wreck coming real fast in terms of school facilities throughout the state. When I was in Lakeview, my oldest building was 1910. 3 stories, 48,000 square feet. My next oldest building was 1918. The next one after that was 1932, and the high school was 1964. The problem with Lakeview, Alsea, Prairie City, places like that, they don't have enough taxable property to be able to even pass a bond that could build a new facility. New elementary school, you're talking 35 to 50 million. Think about the bond we just passed here in Alsea, and well, thank goodness we have just those matching dollars, the awesome grant. So it doubled the impact, but look what it did to our pocketbooks and how little we got. It's just, it would be impossible for us to raise enough funds. There has to be something equitable. And this is one of the major talking points for COSA and OSBA as they're talking to legislatures. In terms of, we have to address the equity issues that we see throughout the state. We all know that when a classroom is properly heated, properly cooled, there's proper lighting, and there's proper oxygenation in the air. It's proper in terms of lack of noise destruction. So there are interruptions, like, you know, there's insulation in the walls, things of that nature. It all impacts the learning environment. Students can't pay attention if there's all these interruptions, or they're too hot, they're too cold, you know, they don't feel comfortable. They're sitting next to a single pane window and it's cold on their left side, the right side is warm. You know, those sorts of things make an impact. So I'm just pointing all this out because the environmental qualities of our facilities is very, very important. And we need to find ways throughout the state to address some of these inequities and make sure that every student has every opportunity possible to be as successful as possible. So there's some key dates coming up. Revenue forecast, November 16th. That will tell us a little bit more about the revenue streams for the state. Also keep in mind, there's going to be a record, because of all the COVID federal funds, there's going to be a record kicker process for both private and corporate. And those are dollars that are by law going back to the people, but then we have to compete for what's remaining in terms of the state school fund. So that's some of the political economic pressures that we're dealing with when we start talking to legislatures. And we're going to have to convince legislatures that schools are worth funding. You know, this is where we train our kids so they can go out and become one of those CTE people that earn $65,000 a year, you know, and has all those lists of soft skills, or those skills they need. Legislative task force formed December 6th through 9. That's when they, you know, develop into areas that talk about ways and means, or transportation, or education, or different sort of things of that nature. It can be very important that we have the right people on the right seat of that bus. Pre-session bill filing, December 21st. Don't let that panic you. They usually file hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bills. And really, it takes about a month to sift through a lot of that stuff to see, is there any traction with any of this? And then OSBA does a really good job of publishing a legislative update. I think it's about weekly or bi-weekly.
And by that time, it'll be weekly.
By that time, be weekly, and then letting us know, okay, of these 900 bills, 300 of them were education related, and of those 300, these 50 are really have any kind of momentum. And that's when we really need to be vocal in communicating with our legislatures in terms of yes, yes, no, no, and maybe. You know, they need to hear from us. Very, very important. Also, February 1st is the release of the governor's budget. And then there's a tentative legislative start date that corresponds around February 1st. And that's where they're in session. And it's important that we maintain awareness. They also, OSBA does a good job working with COSA and I think OEA to sponsor a legislative day for educators at the Capitol. Also, there anytime we could, I would love to work with the board and maybe invite some of our local representatives to come visit our school, eat our lunch with us, you know, see the classrooms, see the kids. I think that would really be meaningful. Just find ways to connect and communicate with them in terms of what our concerns are and what the needs of Alsea School District is. That's very, very important. Okay. So Madam Chair, that's all I got.
All right, thank you very much.
You can have the microphone back.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, let's jump into board discussions. It's a long list tonight, you guys. So first up, Mr. Adams, to talk through and answer some questions about the superintendent search.
I thought I was later in the meeting.
No, you get to be first up.
I get to be
Welcome.
first. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. So I'm gonna go plug in and then I'm presenting from back where the superintendent was. It's gonna be challenging. So I'm gonna
Actually, I can run it for you.
Oh, no, it's not a PowerPoint. So
okay.
I'm just gonna go plug in here.
There we go.
I'm in.
You're in.
So again, thank you for having me. We had a really good discussion earlier during the work session. Then this next piece is, I want to get input from the board and just to, for the folks in the audience that are with us. We had 103 respondents to the quality to qualification survey that's been out for the last couple weeks. That's been out for the last couple of weeks. So I would say that that's a really good turnout, good on the Alsea community, the Alsea school community for responding to this survey and providing the board with really important input on what the qualities and qualifications you're looking for in your district administrator. So just scrolling down, I just wanted to give the board members an opportunity to provide any changes or any additions to this document. I'm sorry, you've only been sitting with this document for about 24 hours at this point.
He can't see that.
I can't see that.
Oh, it's on the TV.
Yeah, I don't need to reduce my pointer lag. My pointer's working really well.
Good.
So if you'd like, I'll just walk through these. The first one, and these are in order of the priority. So they're ranked by the number of people that cited these particular qualities and qualifications. So the top one that popped up from respondents was a high degree of integrity and honesty with strong core values, culturally competent and respectful of all groups. Next was effective communication and listening skills. A lot of people really cared about that having an effective communicator. Proven ability to make tough decisions when necessary and effectively communicate the reasons, and be transparent with the community. Put kids first and be committed to serving kids.
is personable and approachable while keeping an open mind and a good sense of humor. Those were a couple of elements that I combined into one line there. Understand school finance, what your current superintendent was just going over. Understanding school finance demonstrates sound fiscal management and strong budgeting skills, is well organized. Background in teaching and building administration, preferably in small rural areas. That is something else that popped up in the survey, is that, the rural context that Elsie is in is important to the community, and they want someone who gets that. So an instructional leader with strong academic credentials, ability to build and maintain and sustain strong, effective family, community, business partnerships that impact student success, and then highly visible in our community and schools. So
If I might make a comment, I find it interesting that list is very parallel to the superintendent evaluation tool for OSBA.
yeah,
A lot of cross similar.
and that is organic. I mean, that's just the way it turned out. So I'm happy to make modifications. I mean, this document is open and I can edit it right here and now if you'd like. If there's any,
I don't think so. I think that really sums it up for me.
Yeah, me too.
Robert?
No, I'm fine.
so then then this is an item that we do actually need official action of the board. So I need a motion from the board. Approve it.
Can we go through our actions after our discussion? Do you want us to do actions? Does the board have a problem with doing some of these actions right now so that we don't have to stay to the longest to the end?
Well, it's under board discussions right
Yeah,
now.
that's where we're at.
And so the action item part of the agenda is coming up
Yeah.
later.
I mean, if there's currently no objections, I mean, I don't have to stay around to listen to your vote as long as, if you don't approve it later, let me know and we can make changes.
We'll have Deb get in contact with you.
Yes.
Or if someone comes up with something, an amendment to it,
Okay.
just let me know and we'll change it.
Okay.
Okay. So that is one item that I need you to take action on. And then the other one is is a salary range. So, oh, you can actually see that pretty good. Okay, so we're still working with, so this is self-reported data from superintendents. So we survey districts and they provide us data back on compensation for their superintendents. This isn't all the data, and you can't see which districts these are. I did give you the counties that they're in. And I don't really want you to focus on the lines of data. What I really want you to pay attention to is this information here, and it really is the average. Now, this is salary data from the last fiscal year. And so I went and looked at the inflation rate over the last year. So, over the last year, we've had about 8.2% inflation. So, and I think we've all felt that, but not all of that is going to be realized in superintendent compensation. And so I backed that out to 6%. And so this 6%, I don't know why I don't have my note here. It's supposed to say inflation rate, but that's what this number is. So I can put in like 8% and it'll change the numbers. So I could make that calculation. But I talked with my colleagues and we settled on this 6% as a very reasonable number for the inflation rate that we would expect to see in superintendent compensation looking into this next year. And so what I've estimated is I took the minimum and the maximum of the districts here, calculated the median and then the average. And then to help the board kind of think about the salary range, I've gone plus or minus 5% to give you a range. And the numbers I really want to draw your attention to are right here.
Because that includes that increase of the inflation.
Correct. So this is the number range. Now, you know what your budget constraint is. I don't. Your school finance, and I don't even know what you're paying your current superintendent. But this is the range than the range that you want to be thinking about. And the way I want you to think about this is marketing information. So potential applicants are going to look at this number very closely. This is a very important set of numbers because this is going to be screening people in and screening people out. Because they're going to be looking for a certain amount of compensation. I mean, that's everybody does when you're looking at a job. The really, really important number in this range is the lower one. So when you go to negotiate, you really can't, people aren't going to get grumpy if you go over your top. If you find the best superintendent in the whole United States and they want to be an LC, wouldn't that be awesome if that happened? That would be great. You might want to pay them a lot more than your upper range, and that would be fine. You can negotiate above your upper bound, but you really can't go below the bottom. So setting that bottom range, that 114, 114, 115,000, that's going to be the important lower bound. So as you think about what your compensation is going to be, okay? Is that any questions about that? I'm not sure I explained that very well.
No, actually, I thought it's explained it very well.
So I'm going to need you to make a decision on what that, so I don't know, what would be the low end number that you would be thinking of?
What was our low end number?
While you're doing that, I'm going to go grab my model.
I thought it was.
Well, it can be below our principles.
Do you want my honest feedback on that?
Of course.
We weren't presented a salary schedule. We were presented a contract that didn't have a range on it for negotiations.
Well,
So
it's-
there was no range before.
Right,
We-
because it was negotiated by one person, and the rest of us did.
Well, we do, that's how it will work. So once we vote on this, I negotiate with the superintendent. I'm the one that has those conversations. I'm looking to you to tell me where I can negotiate that conversation to. So, but we never had a salary range that we went through for that contract
For him.
for the acting or interim.
So we actually had a conversation with you, wasn't it, prior to,
I think I provided this district.
because there was a
salary
number that
analysis.
said this is what we should be offering. And I can't remember who gave that number. to us.
So COSA probably worked with the previous chair on that, but there
Yeah.
wasn't a range. It was just a
Right, there
number. So
wasn't
this
a
is
range.
this is the range that, like, essentially, when the board votes on this tonight, I have the authority to negotiate on a number back and forth to bring to you guys to inform you and say, why did we get to this point in that salary range? But that's the only authority I would have, that we as a whole have to vote on what we want that range to be.
And when we get to that point, when we get to the end of this process and the board makes a decision to go ahead and enter into negotiations with the candidate, we can talk about parameters, what compensation parameters you're actually looking at in this range. So you'll fine tune this.
So the only thing that I don't see is Benton County on there or Lincoln County.
Right, I did this by size,
Okay.
so by ADM.
So rather than looking at, like.
I was just thinking, close to our neighborhood.
So
but-
yes, you do need to think about that. They may not, we have to think about cost of living in Benton County.
Yeah.
Which, weighs into this. And I also shopped around this number, this set of numbers. And it passed the gut test. So starting at about 115, going to 127, felt pretty reasonable for a district of this size.
What is our budget now? What, do you have that budget sheet now? What our budget is for them? Do you have that?
For next year,
Mhm.
We haven't built.
I mean, for this
For
year.
this year, I can pull it up on our, I think it's listed online. You want the budget for the superintendent salary?
Yes.
And that'll probably be total compensation as well.
Yeah.
Because you also have your number of days too, contact days per year.
These are all pretty comparable. These are all full school years.
about comparison with the admin, part of the HR reset, I think you've seen the salaries always bringing forth, and the daily compensation for that is actually above what the principals would be, which is what. you want.
Yes, what you want.
Which
That's
is
what I
what
was
you want.
saying. We can't go much lower than.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You don't want to pay your superintendent
No.
less per day than what you're paying your principals.
I surely have a copy of this year's budget. I don't see that it got posted online.
In my office.
Let me see if I can pull this contract real quick too.
We'll find it.
So. I can show. what we're paying you, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's all
so
public information.
I know. So compensation at this point right now for where we're at right now with this superintendent for an annual salary is at 140. Yeah, so a standing superintendent is below that versus the interim, what we have in place today.
So you're already affording 140. What that tells me is that you could be very competitive in the market.
So at the 126, that's being very competitive.
No, if you came in at
Average.
somewhere around 140, you'd be very, very competitive.
So 126 would be more the average.
Not based on this analysis, not based on comparable districts and all of these. If you look at the counties, I mean, we're talking about Lake Wallowa, Lane, I believe that's South Lane, Clatsop. I mean, we're not talking about very high population places.
But we're not very high population.
Umatilla.
So the range
So-
of the 115 to 127 is, correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't look in two different places, but it is competitive, but what, but it gives us the high-end negotiation side. If we need to do that based on the qualities and qualifications that somebody comes into, I think that long-term, what we're facing with a budget, however, is to be very careful with that upper bound, in my opinion, but
Also keep in mind, we all recognize that we're a little heavy on admin this year.
Mhm.
And I think that that'll be part of the areas that we can trim. Is the admin staff for next year, which means you could bump more into the superintendent salary for, to be fit. So what I'm looking at here is you budgeted 160,000 this year.
we did budget 160.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, was 160.
And I think that we kind of have to realize that anybody that's looking at this job is probably going to have to live or look at living in the Philomath Corrales area, which is a really high area to try to live in. Cost of living is higher there
Travel.
and so forth. So, you know, don't want to be
I mean, I
looking at us as
personally-
we're too small because somebody wants to come in here, they're probably gonna want to live in Philomath Corrales.
And so I would encourage the district in the long term, not now, but in the long term, to consider like a teacherage, or, you know, picking up a piece of property that you can use for the superintendent to live in, or a principal, or a teacher, or, you know, most communities that are kind of isolated like this, they do that. We have that in Lakeview. We maintained a duplex and called it teacherage, and it was rented out all the time because, you know, they had troubles finding housing in that small community, and there, the nearest community was Clown Falls, 90 miles away,
Wow.
you know, and it just wasn't, so we had to have something. And so that might be something the board would want to consider someday. I wouldn't do it now. That could be a possibility.
Well, because I personally would like to see our super be a part of our community. He's gonna stay.
Well, I agree with that, but it right now might not be possible.
Anything's possible if you want to be a part of. I mean, if I was taking a job in Portland, I'd certainly look at possibly relocating because it would make my life easier, but I mean, that's just me personally, because I would want to make that drive every day.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, back to the numbers.
So for me, as the numbers, I don't think those are bad numbers because you have the option to negotiate above those numbers.
Mhm.
You don't have an option to negotiate below that number.
Would you want to bump that? I mean, it's 127. Would you like to take that to maybe 130 and leave it there?
Well, I was thinking the 114 to 140. Because we are paying the 140 right now, and it is something we could do. But, I mean, I think it would all, in the negotiation would be, depending on education and skill set, the whole.
I disagree with taking it to 140. I think that sets an expectation that we would be willing to pay that, and I think that we need to be careful with
gonna
what
be
we're willing to
negotiated
pay.
first.
I think that you negotiate that after you see years of practice in place in our district. What are you doing for that? Are you worth, gosh, that sounds very cruel, but do we want to continue to bump that because you continue to really be in this district, understand our students, understand our staff, and continue to grow us wherever that might be. Now, maybe that's not numbers, but it's in skill of what we're graduating. So I don't know that I want to start out there on a negotiate.
Well, I didn't say start out at.
No. I'm saying I don't even want to list it on the job qualifications because that attracts somebody that may not be willing to take less than 120. And then we've spent all this time interviewing and going through that process. That goes, well, no, you listed 140. I know the rules. I can negotiate higher than that if I want to. I'm not taking less than that. And it's like, well, that's a lot of time we just put in on the table to do all that.
That's true. I guess I never looked at
So
it that
if-
way.
We don't like the pool. And we put it back out there. We change these numbers, right?
Okay.
We could potentially do that, repost it. Potentially.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
115,
we would
140.
want to avoid doing that because we would have to re-promote it.
Yeah.
So we would pull the original posting down and then repost it.
But if it come down to it. we could-
So if we made it, Deb makes a good point though too, if we made it an even clean numbers, 115 to 130.
What do you think?
110 to 125.
Your calculations on K 14, 15, I
Just
think it
saying.
is. Can you adjust your averages to a plus or minus 6%?
Oh, plus or minus
Where
6%.
your
Oh,
averages are?
widening it? I knew you'd ask me to do that.
Sorry.
Yes, I can do that. I just have to go in here and go change. So this would be 6. 6. So that's just for these two cells. I adjusted these to 6%. So that takes you to, 113, 113.6, really call it 114 to 128.
Keep in mind your break even point in terms of matching the daily principal rate is 118.
Oh,
So I'm saying.
yeah,
So, you don't even want to be here.
nope.
So 115 is not going to work out.
Nope.
So
So for matching.
I didn't know
our-
the numbers, but I thought it was close to that.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So
There you
sorry, so 118 is the matching principal,
That would match the daily principal rate for those principals.
so 120.
Yeah.
At least.
that would be for someone who was like an assistant principal or principal, coming out, and
Yeah,
it'd
first
be-
year.
it would be their first superintendency.
Mhm.
So what do you think on the higher end there?
I'm personally at 130. Robert?
128.
That doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room.
We know there's certain pennies in this.
Gotta start
Yeah, we-
somewhere.
I was thinking 135.
Right?
I like the other numbers better, but I knew it was close to the principals.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing to compensate your people. It means you get good people, they feel cared for.
Kristen?
I agree with 135. I'd still sit a little bit lower than where we're sitting because we know we can negotiate higher if we need to. And I still think you get a good $15,000 gap there. So to negotiate with. I mean,
I'm seeing some nods. Yep, 135.
maybe we can
Sounds like
propose
an
that.
See what it
Yeah.
looks like on there.
That looks really high.
Well, you're paying your current one 140. So
Yeah, we gave him a whole pile of food.
The thing of it is when we did that, we were
Right.
looking for really specific skills to get us where we needed to
Right.
be. And some of the people that we had choices for, we might have selected at that time, but they didn't have the experience.
Which goes back to, being able to hire somebody with less experience because we have some of our house in order.
Yes. And we plan to have our house in order more, right, John?
It's gonna be done by June, right?
So we're gonna vote on numbers in a little
Plan.
bit. And so we'll
okay,
let
So
you
115
double
If it-
communicate
if
if
it-
it's different.
if it's different, let me know.
Okay,
and.
Thank you so
135.
much.
thank you for breaking all.
Are you kidding?
And thanks for
I love
playing with
hanging
your
out with you
Excel in front
guys.
of everybody.
I got a lovely drive out to
Oh,
Alsea.
yeah.
You're the best.
I'm telling you, no
You just
way.
repeat those words in January when there's snow on the road. No.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you so much. If you ever have any questions,
Yes.
feel free to reach out. I think all y'all have my phone
Speed
number.
dial. I mean,
Reach out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vince.
all right, let's take like 5 minutes and take a quick break and then we'll resume open session.
Okay.
Okay. Next up for our discussion is LBL ESD Budget Committee.
Yes, Madam Chair. LBL ESD has reached out to me. And they currently have an at-large budget committee position that is open. They were saying it'd be a great position for a current Alsea school board member to learn more about serving on a budget committee and current LBL ESD services. I grabbed some handouts on LBL that I was going to share with you guys. Just kind of some fun facts. So take one and enjoy your reading. The position would come with some training, and if there is interest, that I really feel the board would want to appoint one of the current board members to serve in this capacity. So it's completely up to you guys if you want to participate or if you don't want to participate, but I thought it was good that the ESD was reaching out, poignantly inviting us.
Can I ask what the time commitment looks like for that?
I think it'd be very normal, like our regular budget process. You're probably gonna have 1 or 2 budget meetings sometime in the spring. And I'm not sure if their training is gonna be online or it has to be in person. I did not ask that.
Maybe we should reach out and get information. More
Sure
information.
can, yeah. That's what you'd like.
Without reaching out, I would totally be interested just so I would learn more about the budget process. If you guys want, if you don't, or if somebody else wants to be on it, then
I don't have the time personally, but
I know how to grow it.
teach me. I need to learn how to grow time.
What about Robert? He's always interested. Are you interested at all, Robert?
In the budget side of things?
No, thank you.
All right. Do we have an action already to appoint somebody?
Yeah, go for it. Steve.
No,
No.
it's already on
Yeah.
there. Have to vote on it later if you
Yeah.
want to appoint somebody.
Yeah, this is just discussion.
All right, 8E, board will be voting an OSBA Board of Directors representatives. And one resolution. I don't know what that means, sorry.
I don't need it.
Uh-oh, did we not include that?
Ballot to elect.
I don't,
Is it ballot? Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, 2022 ballot to elect. So OSBA is asking for. Let's see, we're not in region 1, we're not in region 4. But there's open board positions that they said, please select 2 candidates. And to tell you the truth, I do not know any of these candidates, so I don't know how to advise the board on this.
and what are the board positions for?
Wait a second, this
Superintendent.
Oregon Small Schools Association.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is-
we got the wrong document. Never mind.
Like,
Sorry,
those are superintendents.
those are superintendents. Never mind. We
Um,
got our something crossed there. I think there was a vote for OSBA Board of Directors.
There, I guess, yeah, there's, I know that like,
She just got the wrong document in there.
I know a board member from Corvallis is running for a board of director position.
Yes, yes.
When do you know when we need to have our votes in
Let
for
me
that?
search in my email, see if I can find it here.
Well, you do that. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, wait, we can talk about the next one while you search for that. So the next one is our board meeting frequency. Tonight is the last bi-monthly meeting that we would be having. So this is our last 2 a month. My thought was that with the holidays coming up with Thanksgiving and Christmas, that it might be good to just go back to our once a month meeting for November and December. And then if we need to pick back up 2 a month, we can do that starting in January.
And talk
But wanted
about
to
it
hear-
in January
What?
and talk about it.
Well, I think we would talk about it in December, but wouldn't we?
Why not in January's meeting?
I guess we, yeah, that's fine. Otherwise, as of tonight, we're back to once a month. So that's what the discussion's for.
I say go back to once a month until after the holidays, and then in January, we can bring the discussion back up to the board.
Our board meeting is on the 12th of January, right?
Yeah, second Tuesday of the month.
So it would be a quick turnaround for the second meeting. I would rather have it ahead, like she said, December. But whatever.
Well, we may not know if we even need to have like the second business meeting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it is less to prepare for. Like we don't have financials the second meeting of the month and things like that. So I don't know.
So my opinion is to wait until January, see if we need to bring in a second one. Because we may not need to. Robert?
What? Yeah, you first. If I would just think if something pops up and we need to do something, we can always have special ones. So
Of
don't
course.
think it's a big deal.
Of course.
Brian?
I was just thinking, what are we doing for policies? Because
Right.
I don't want to string these out.
This is first reading tonight, and then in 2 weeks we have second reading. So we have to. You guys.
I understand, but how many more, what else are we gonna get?
Oh, right. So what?
You'll
how- the
have another
timeline?
string of first
Like
readings.
this?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
so that would mean, okay, so if I hear that correctly, that means that next meeting we approve
You would,
second readings and have another
Mhm.
string of first readings.
yes.
That's what I'm getting. I just could string these. I mean, it's just my,
Because there's a lot.
Hold on.
There's a lot.
if we have another string like that,
Mhm.
So
There's a
the-
lot.
We can't, well, we could have 2 meetings. We can't really have 2 meetings in November because the school's closed the week of the 21st.
Mhm.
Um,
You'd have to move something to the last week in November. Or is that the last week?
no,
Right.
no, the next week is the last week, but then we have another board meeting on the 8th of December.
Right. The other thing to consider is, Rick Stuckey reminded me that you can do first and second reading on board policies in the same meeting. If that's something the board chooses.
We'd have to get the information way ahead of time in order to. do-
Yes. Yeah, and I apologize.
No,
this-
no, no,
this
I just
Group
mean,
was so late, but.
if we want to look at doing that for November,
Mhm,
then we'd want the second batch as soon as possible. Right,
mhm.
Mhm.
so we can
Mhm.
go cross-eyed and learn. So if the board doesn't have a desire to change frequency right now back to 2 a month, then we don't have a vote. We run out of our,
Just let it go.
yeah, we run out of it tonight. We can bring it back up.
Mhm.
So, okay, we'll cancel that action when we get to it.
Okay.
Did you have follow-up on the
Yep.
board of directors?
Yep, I found it. It's actually November 15th to December 15th, so we'll bring it back. First meeting in November.
Thanks. All right, girls basketball co-op with Monroe. Nathan, is Mr. Rothenberger online this evening?
Yep, he's all set to unmute.
Can you, okay, and then Miss Hendricks, would you like to come join us in case there's any questions from the board?
Can you hear me?
A little bit. I'm gonna try again.
Bart?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Barely. You really need to speak up.
Oh,
Or turn up his mic.
Testing, 1, 2.
Better.
Got
That'll work.
That'll work.
All right, I'll scream. I'm screaming from here.
Okay, scream away.
Coach's voice right here. Hey, so past 2 to 3 weeks, we've been going through the halls trying to find enough girls to have a basketball team. We have tried to drum up interest, and we cannot come up with enough interest. We have 6 girls that are interested in playing basketball. That's pretty tough to play a 3.5-month season with 6 girls. 1 injury, 1 sickness. It's almost impossible. So unfortunately, our goal is not to get rid of girls basketball, but we got to maintain it because we do have 4 8th graders for sure next year. And out of our 6, 2 are foreign exchange on the high school team. And so we would have a total of 8 next year. And then we have to keep working hard trying to maybe get a transfer in or something like that. But with the intentions of bringing it back next year, we've talked with Monroe Union High School. And as most of you know, we've had many co-ops with them over the past 20 years, and they've been positive. And so I met with Ricky the other day, as you saw in our memo to you guys. We went through that. I had a list, and then I had her review the memo. And we talked about positives and negatives. And she would rather have a team at Alcee, I think is really true. She understands with our numbers, it would be pretty tough. She has stepped up to say that she would take the girls back and forth, and she'd be a part of Monroe High School's girls basketball staff. Talking to Bill Croson and Bo Cisneros, they would love to honor that, and Tony Parker as their head coach, and Ricky would be a part of that staff. So our girls would have a common face. And also the good part is if we have girls at a different level than varsity, they do offer JV varsity. They think they have 14 girls coming out. So 20 girls between 2 teams is perfect to run a JV and varsity. It's a 2A level. But that's, any questions?
So normally in the past, we have co-op with Philomath. Is that not,
We've done Monroe with baseball.
I
many
remember
years.
1 year,
Quite a few, when early 2000s.
There's several
We-
different years.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
we've-
was before that.
we've-
I was in
But
We've
school.
also
normally we have
co-
a standing co-op with Philomath.
we've had off and on, but we've also had wrestling with Monroe too. And Monroe being more of our school size and our likeness of what we need, I think is a much better fit. I had conversations with Philomath. They do cut over there, so I'm not sure, we can't guarantee our 6 girls will go there and make a team. I think that's pretty critical because we want to give our girls opportunities.
So I guess that was one of the questions that I had today was, are our girls guaranteed a spot in Monroe if the board approves the co-op and their board approves the co-op, or are they at risk of being cut from their program?
I have not, I don't want to sit here and lie to you because I did not ask that question, but I am pretty darn sure that Monroe has a no cut policy.
Say that last part
Yeah.
again really quick, Bart.
Sorry, I'm pretty darn sure Monroe has a no cut policy. But I will text as we're talking here and I will find that out.
Okay, thank you.
Did they charge, is there a fee for each player?
Don't know that either, but I would assume if there is, that we are going to cover that fee of our kids.
He said he's not sure, but he would assume that we would cover that for our kids,
If there was.
if there was.
We would cover our coach's salary and obviously the van and any other necessities that Monroe's asked, but they were not concerned about money. They're very excited because last couple of years, they struggled getting having a true JV team. And with these numbers, if it would give them opportunities to run 2 quality programs.
So our coach would be a part of their program?
Yes. And I don't know, Rick, I don't know if Ricky's talked with Tony yet, but she's been given Tony's email address and cell number.
I've not made contact with Tony yet. I'll try again tomorrow.
What?
I haven't heard back from Tony yet, but I will try again tomorrow.
I have a hard time hearing soft voices.
So if
Read
I
my letter.
understand correctly, Rick,
Sorry.
Ricky would be a part of the Monroe basketball program, but staffed by Alsea School District and compensated by Alsea School District.
Correct.
In the past, when we've co-opted, if there was a fee for students, have we paid for that?
Nicole had a side comment about a Wolverine fund.
What?
The Wolverine athletic.
Oh,
I know in the past, like my little brother played baseball there. There was not a fee to participate, but that was.
There is not, I just got a text back, there is not a fee for Monroe athletes.
What about their cut policy?
Bart, did you hear that?
I'm texting him.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
I don't think there will be a cut policy with 20 players.
Not with 2 teams.
So just so when we get to the approval of this, after the discussion, just so I'm clear, this board would be deciding whether or not to co-op. However, does that still leave an option for us to back away from that co-op if in the next week we have 8 more girls that want to come out? Does that still leave that door open to say, okay, Monroe, thank you, but we now have a team, or what does that look like?
Okay. Christine, I get what you're saying. Basketball starts November 14th.
Mhm.
I pounded the halls. I've worked hard. I went and I begged, and we're to a point where we've got to go one direction or the other. And I've held on, and I mean, I thought even, we had even a lot of enthusiasm last night, with state volleyball, and I hit a couple there. And it's not happening. We don't have a senior that's going to play basketball this year. So I feel like I've done quite a bit of my homework. If we all said have 4 girls come out by Monday, I imagine we could definitely pull out of that. Because we have not filed officially with OSA, and I don't believe, think Monroe's school board meets next Tuesday.
I think put a timeline on it for the kids, sign up by this time. If not, we're co-oping and
Well, we can approve the co-op as long as they don't do OSA paperwork, correct? I mean, you guys can leave that to the operational side. You just need the board to decide whether we would agree to the co-op.
Absolutely. And if we have abundance of girls that are going to be serious and come out and want to play basketball for Ricky, then we would pull out of that, and OSA would support us on that.
Other questions?
No.
Thanks for sitting in the hot seat. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks, Ricky.
Rothenberger.
Thanks, Bert.
Yeah, thank you. I do understand that our goal is to build the program numbers, and we want the program back at LC next year.
perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
I didn't what he said.
He said that the goal is to build a program and bring it back to LC next year. All right, next up is a list of policies for first reading. I will tattle on myself. I haven't read any of them yet.
It's okay. It's just first reading,
Okay, so we would bring these back next meeting to discuss
second reading.
and vote on second reading,
Yes.
hopefully.
So what I would recommend is between now and then, you just sit down and read through the policies. Make any notes of questions you might have, or if you think you see an error, because sometimes those pop up. These policies are truly reflective of current state and federal laws. So then you'll see some strikeout language in some of the policies because it's old language, no longer applicable, or there's a better way of stating it, but the attorneys have all agreed that's a better way. You can see additional language that's highlighted or added to the policies. I think there's even one policy we're taking off the books and because it's already embedded in another policy. So you'll see a number of those things. Nathan?
Bart just texted, he said Monroe does not cut players.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
So pay close attention to the board member stuff because there's procedures there in terms of board member resignation or vacancies on the board or, a lot of those things we've talked about. I don't think there's major changes, but there's a few things. One of the major ones with board is BBFC with reporting of suspected abuse of a child. Now, according to state law, school board members are mandatory reporters 24/7, 365. So even if you're in the grocery store in Timbuktu and you happen to see somebody abusing a child, you are mandatorily required to report them. And they could be reported to law enforcement or it could report them to DHS. It's one and the same.
I thought we were already.
Actually, before the law, no. Board members were not mandatory reporters.
Hmm.
And I can't remember when the law changed. I think it was a couple of years ago. But yeah, before that, the board members were not mandatory reporters.
I am because I'm a 4-H leader.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And as a voluntary coach,
Yep.
all those sorts of things. So a lot of this has to do with board member stuff, with superintendent stuff, which is all good to get up to speed, especially as you're looking for a new superintendent. Other than that, I can't think of anything that is really a major. You'll just see a lot of changes. And this has all been vetted through the OSBA policy department, Rick Stuckey is the director. I've worked with Rick for years on this stuff and he is excellent. And behind Rick is a whole legal workforce of attorneys that advise him on policy development. So just realize it's not one man that is making these recommendations. He's just the one customizing it according to our district needs and where we're at and inserting the right things in the right spots.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
All right, do we have any patron comments this evening? No. All right, any board comments? All right, we have our minutes from October to approve. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for October.
To have motions to approve the October minutes.
I second.
20 seconds. Roll. Any other discussion?
No.
All right, Robert,
Yeah.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine's yes, Linda,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
all in favor, passes unanimously. All right, action items. Can we please move the LBLESD? No, wait, sorry, that's not fun. Do we have the OSBA voting? Oh, that was
Don't
just,
remember.
is that just a memo or is it just?
The
Was it just a
OSBA
memo?
voting will be next
But we're not, it's just a memo, isn't it then? We're not voting here in this session, are we?
on the OSBA.
Because it's not on
Thing.
here if we were supposed to vote tonight anyways.
I'm sorry. we
Never
lost
mind,
it.
it's fine.
You talking about the one I had looked for the email?
Yes, but was that just a notification to the board? We're
No,
not
you'll
actually,
have to vote, but we can do that at the next meeting.
can you make sure it gets onto the agenda for the next meeting? Because it's not on this agenda to vote for
Yes.
the OSBA.
Yes.
All right, so first up is the action item for the LBL ESD Budget Committee appointment. I'll make a motion to appoint myself as the Budget Committee member for the LBL ESD.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Have fun.
Robert,
Sure.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine's yes, Linda,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Hold on. So 12B is to approve the superintendent recruitment committee, but we're not really approving the committee, we're approving the date.
Right, we were
yes.
approving a date.
The committee member training date of January 12th.
There was something else. to it.
Yeah,
Hold
there's
on.
a few, but for 12B, we're not actually approving the committee. We've given those names in our work session.
Correct.
Okay, so we can scratch 12B. It does not need to be voted on. 12C, LC Education MOU approval. Mr. Gallagher.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was half asleep there.
Taking after me.
Find the document here.
Sorry.
This is a memorandum of agreement with the local certified union. And it has to do with for the 22-23 school year. And basically bringing the language up to date in accordance with state law. The old language required a teacher to have worked an entire previous year before they get a step increase. State law says 135 consecutive days or more. And so this basically brings this language into compliance with the state law. There was 6 staff, certified staff members hired mid-year last year. None of them got a step increase, and with the approval of this MOU, it would be only one of them would qualify for the step increase because everybody else would have been 135 days less. So it simply just draws a line in the sand in terms of this is when they get a step increase.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the MOU AEA 2022.
Have motions to approve the MOU AEA for 2022. Is there a second?
I will.
Robert seconds. Discussion.
No.
All right, Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine is yes. Linda,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously. Did you have something, Deb?
No, go ahead.
For 12D, meeting frequency, we do not need to vote since this is the last secondary meeting, so we'll scratch that also. 12E is the girls' basketball co-op with Monroe.
Make a motion that we co-op with Monroe.
All right, Deb motions to co-op with Monroe. Is there a second?
Second.
Ryan seconds. Any discussion?
No.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think there's a much deeper surface in what's going on than what has been stated, and I am too mixed up in it to vote, so I abstain from voting.
Okay. Other discussion? Okay. Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine is yes. Linda, or you just, Linda? Abstain? Well, you-
Abstain.
Yeah. I want to vote for you, sorry. Ryan,
Yes.
motion passes 4-1. Capital bond project support?
Yes, Madam Chair. Up until this point, we've just piggybacked on the IGA with the ESD for Dave McKay's services. We're at the point now that we really need to establish an official agreement with him. And so, as you can see, it's a maximum of $7,500. And the rate that he charges per hour, and he's been tremendous support for us in that capacity. So I would recommend that we approve that contract with him.
When you say that there a budget to be established, is that the high limit? Sorry, I guess
There's a memo saying,
we're requesting that a budget of 7,500 be established for the initial due diligence. So that doesn't, it can exceed that?
no,
Okay,
no, we're limiting it to $7,500. We wanted him to stay within that budget.
is there a motion, excuse me, to approve the capital bond project support?
I'll make a motion to approve capital bond project support.
All right, Deb makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Linda seconds. Deb, do you have any discussion on it?
Nope.
Okay, Linda?
No
Other
discussion.
Any other discussion?
So if we go out for a bond project manager,
Mhm.
what happens here?
He would still stay on as a consultant. He would probably be in a reduced capacity if we had a full-blown project manager though.
Okay,
But he'd still be somebody we could reach out to, or maybe a second opinion, or, somebody could work and support that project manager.
so basically he's just gonna do it hourly up to the 70, or try to keep it within
Yes,
7,500
Yes,
and
Yeah.
use him. Great.
Okay. Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine is a yes. Linda,
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
All right, next up is the approval for the qualities and qualifications for the superintendent. Is there a motion to approve the qualities and qualifications as presented earlier this evening?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
All right, Deb makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
9 seconds. Any discussion?
Nope.
All right, Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine is a yes. Linda,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
All right, next we need a vote to approve a committee member training on January 12th, 2023.
So I'll make the motion.
All right, Deb motions to approve the committee member training on January 12th, 2023.
6 p.m. correct?
Sure, 6 p.m. at 6 p.m. Have it in the notes now.
That's before the meeting, is that? right?
Yeah, that would be right before the regular board meeting. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Okay, Ryan seconds. Any discussion? All right. Robert?
Yeah.
Deb?
Yes.
Christina's yes.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
Ryan.
Nicole
Okay.
needs to be off the team.
All right, and last on our
Look at his
action is we need to vote to approve a superintendent salary schedule.
So I'll make the motion just so I can open the discussion of 120 to 135.
A second, so you can have your discussion.
All right, Deb motions and Ryan seconds for a superintendent salary schedule of 120 to 135.
So I'm really good with the 120 number. And I understand the 135 number. I'm struggling with that number a little bit.
Which
The
can I ask which part of
135.
it?
The 135.
Can you share why?
Well, I think right now, because we're going in our budget cutbacks and our school is struggling a little bit, and it will be in the next couple of years while we figure everything out. Because our school is so small and our budgets are so small, I think it's just something that we really need to be aware of. We need to make sure we're making our cutbacks to where we can afford to have that. And maybe it's, I'm okay with it if we're gonna cut an admin underneath of him where he's gonna soak up some of that. So, I mean, it's part of the HR reset and setting in some of the other numbers in with, because when I first come here, of course, our school was about 100 students less, but our acting super was our acting principal. And so therefore, then our budgets were a lot less. And so I guess that's where I'm at.
It's a very common thing for superintendents of this size to somehow, or sometimes serve as superintendent slash like elementary principal or superintendent slash secondary principal, or, it's a very common combination. So anybody that would be applying for this position, they would know that that could be on the table.
So that's where I would want to go is, looking at our budget forward and knowing we have to make some cuts or some resets, I guess. That would be something I think would need to be on the table to make sure that, whoever steps into that role is willing to do that for the money.
So what's the problem? I mean, the 130, we gotta have a range though. So
Right.
what's your top range? I mean,
Well, I said.
because you
the
said you're good with 120.
120 to
So
135, but making sure that it's very clear that where our budget sits and possibly the extra roles that the superintendent might have to absorb to get even to the higher numbers. Just because of how tough things are going to get in the next couple of years till we get everything situated.
Does that change the vote?
We're just,
That
we're just
discussion.
I mean, we're-
discussion.
yeah, I don't know that it changes the vote. Well, we haven't voted, so.
So that's just how I feel. I'm good with the rest of it.
Robert, anything?
It is what it is, and we can't go lower. So I think the 35 is plenty high, knowing that we could exceed that.
So my understanding is that in this range, as a board, during the hiring process, we would all decide on what we would originally start with an offer.
Mhm.
I go in and have the conversation or send the contract, honestly, is how it's usually done. And the negotiation process starts. And from there, I have wiggle room, but still have to send the contract back to you for a review, for you to individually have a say in that. I can't just say, like, let's say we said 125 and they came back and said 132. I have no right to say 132. I have the right to have that negotiation conversation and bring back to you to your concerns. Does that make sense?
It still has to
The
be
two
board approved.
scenarios, right? We say 125. he
We
says
say 120, we would
135,
say
or
125 as a
132.
group. I write out the contract, I present the contract, he, she, whatever, whoever it might be, says 132. I say, based on what, they give the reasoning, I say, okay, let me take that to my board. My board says,
Yep.
130 and a stipend for this, or whatever that might be,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
We say, okay, well, this, you know, so that is the process. So I totally hear you when you're talking about the 135 and where we're at. I just wanted to also reiterate that negotiation process, it also still depends on this board deciding that that's a yes.
Yes.
That I'm very comfortable
Okay.
with. Because I think that's reasonable.
Okay,
Very normal.
Yeah, okay. I'm very comfortable.
okay, perfect. Any other discussion did you want to have? All right, let's vote. Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine is a yes, Linda,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
That concludes action items. Let's move into section 13. We have some resignations to approve this evening. We can approve them in a batch or we can approve them individually. Is there a preference?
I do not have a preference.
All right, is there a motion to approve the resignations of Mr. France and Mrs. Lookaba? I hope I
So-
pronounced that correctly. I apologize
do-
if I did not.
I do believe so, yes.
I don't see a letter from Mr. France.
It
in
is
picture.
there.
It's
Is that-
image.
It says that it's the image.
Okay. Well, I can't read sideways.
You
Into
pick
the
up your
2020,
laptop Like this.
2022, 2023 school year.
Oh, there it went away. Um, Oh, you don't. Sorry, I'll get back there. Just 1 second.
So I'll ask again, is there a motion to approve the resignations?
I make a motion to approve the resignations.
Linda motions, is there a second? All right, I will second. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Yeah.
How do you discuss what somebody wants to do?
Yeah. Ryan?
No.
Deb?
No.
Robert?
No.
Okay, let's vote. Robert?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Christine is a yes. Linda?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yeah.
We will move into executive session at 20:54 to address two items. Unmuted. Okay, we are back in open session at 21:33 with no additional items, so we can also adjourn at 21:33. Key dates, today was early release, tomorrow more student conferences, and we will see you for a board meeting on November 10th at 7 PM. Thank you.
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned.